Hello and welcome everyone to the Migration Summit 2022. Organized by MIT Refugee Action Hub React, NAMAL, Karam Foundation, Paper Airplanes, and the MIT Abdul Latif Jameel World Education Lab, JWEL. The Migration Summit is a month-long global convening designed to build bridges between diverse communities of displaced learners, universities, companies, nonprofits and NGOs, social enterprise, foundations, researchers, policymakers, and governments around the world to address key challenges and opportunities for refugee and migrant communities. This year, we are exploring the theme of education and workforce development and displacement through virtual events hosted by participating partners around the world. My name is Dr. Lana Cook, Assistant Director of Strategic Initiatives at MIT Open Learning, where I help manage the MIT Refugee Action Hub, React. I'm so delighted to have this conversation today on holistic support, seeing and supporting the whole, the whole human. Holistic support in education, attending to the well-being of students, educators, parents, and communities is essential to academic achievement and overall thriving. In this session, we will hear from Save the Children Jordan and the Childhood Education International, and in their work in building generative learning ecosystems with educators and teachers through a focus on social-emotional learning, systems thinking, and inclusive pedagogies. I'll introduce each of the speakers individually and give them opportunity to share on their work. We'll then join in a conversation, hearing questions from you in the audience to really explore this theme around holistic support. So first, I'm delighted to introduce Itaf AlAwawdeh, the Program Director for Transforming Refugee Education for Excellence, or the TREE project at Save the Children Jordan. She has over 20 years of experience in international development, education, youth development, and the rule of law in Jordan and the Arab states. Itaf received an undergraduate degree in law from the University of Jordan, master's degree in international human rights from University of Essex, United Kingdom, and a second master's degree in intellectual property law from Jordan University. Itaf is a PhD candidate in international law at Middlesex University, London. She worked at the IRC, where she led the creation of early childhood education programs in conflict-affected areas in the Northwest and Northeast Syria. She worked with Save the Children International as an education advisor, where she served as the co-chair of the SCI group on safe schools and member of SCI Basic Education Thematic Group. In addition, she contributed to the development of the SCI's common approach to address violence in schools. Itaf has led the development of key strategic and scalable education projects in Jordan that aim to address equitable access to education and quality learning opportunities in basic education and early childhood education, in addition to supporting teacher professional development and well-being, which we'll hear more about today. She has also worked with the UNICEF Jordan office, where she's responsible for education and youth development and power programs, and has extensive experience in rule of law and working on regional gender equality initiatives in the MENA region with American Bar Association. Itaf, I'm so pleased to welcome you to the Migration Summit today and to hear about your work on TREE.
Thank you so much, Lana. So Lana, shall I start first, or would you prefer to introduce Dr. Diana?
Please go ahead, Itaf, and then we'll hear from Diana. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lana, for the nice introduction. I'd like also to welcome the audience, the participants. Thanks them to joining us today. I mean, most of the people in the participant, as I can see from the chat, are colleagues and friends. So thank you for being here, and I hope actually many people, other people will join us in the session later. I'm pleased as well to take the opportunity today to share with you Save the Children work in relation to teacher well-being and equality learning in schools through TREE program. TREE is transforming refugee education towards excellence. My presentation will look at how teacher well-being is affecting the student and their learning and the different dimensions of the problem, explaining some of the root causes and potential solutions so far. Through that, we aim to provide you with a kind of a unique perspective from Jordan, where solutions created locally, and some of which could be actually cascaded to other countries that might face similar problems. TREE, which is a joint initiative between Save the Children, JWEL, Ministry of Education, Community Jameel, Dubai Care, and Al-Hikma Pharmaceuticals, responds to the decline in children's learning outcome and well-being in the country. We know that there are several factors that contributing to this situation, but we are pretty sure that one of which is the limited, innovative, and engaging opportunities given for teachers to engage in the teaching profession, in addition to inadequate and somehow lack of recognition for teachers' well-being. Teachers in Jordan, which might be similar to other places and other countries, are under-trained, under-resourced, they do lack motivation and incentive to continue in the teaching profession, and they as well under pressure constantly. The refugee crisis and the influx of refugees in Jordan actually made things more I would say worse to some good extent, which is not really surprising. Jordan for a long time is a host to many refugees from different countries and is considered to be one of the world's largest refugee population per capita. The situation, the refugee situation, the displacement and migration to the country is only one side of the problem. The issue actually of declining learning outcome, educational crisis started even before the influx of Syrian refugees to the country, like 10 or 15 years ago. But nevertheless, the situation is getting more problematic as we go on. The COVID-19 and the impact of the pandemic on the education system is quite remarkable. And until now, the country is struggling to overcome the consequences of the pandemic. So far, actually, some work has been undertaken in student well-being, but yet not much when it comes to teachers' well-being. And this is very much problematic because will teachers, will children go hand in hand? And we know that teachers are the most significant in-school factor that influence student performance, achievement, satisfaction, and happiness. And unless teachers are well, we cannot expect children actually to be well and to reach their full potential. Our program aims to respond to such situation by providing a specific intervention that address the root causes of the problem, and as well providing further opportunities for teachers to engage in the teaching profession and to understand their communities and to support their communities. So far, actually, we've been working at two fronts to respond to the well-being of teachers in the program. First, we were trying to get more evidence when it comes to teacher professional development. Teacher well-being, generally speaking, study are lacking in Africa and Middle East, and specifically in Jordan as well, and even in more generally in low-income countries generally. So to better understand the occupational well-being of teachers, to be able to generate evidence on the subject as a starting point, to get to coordinate with other stakeholders to respond to these needs, TREE supports the development and implementation of a national teacher survey on teacher well-being. The survey is very much critical and has been undertaken at a very important time in the history of Jordan. Like many other countries I've mentioned, they've been through the COVID-19, the refugee crisis. So it was a very much of a timely effort to address the well-being of teachers. The development of the survey has been through two critical steps. The first one is through developing the scale, and the second one is through the implementation of the scale itself. In terms of developing the scale, The occupational well-being scale was developed following an extensive research process led by our academic partner to consult and test it with teachers in the country. So teachers at different levels from different governorates will be part actually of the process to get to understand from them not only their priorities, the different domains of their well-being, the issue that affect their well-being in the school setting. As a result, 6 dimensions were identified as key for the occupational well-being of teachers in Jordan. These actually much or less quite similar to the dimension identified by by teachers in other countries, but there is some specific specification for Jordan for some dimension and sub-dimension that speaks to the experience of teachers in the country. So the 6 dimensions identified by teachers, including first, their financial well-being, their financial stability, financial benefits and provided for them, their social well-being in terms of their relationship with their colleagues, with parents, with the students, and with school leadership. The psychological well-being in relation to their self-awareness, self-understanding, being able to work with their emotion and to regulate their emotion. Another dimension identified by them is the physical environment well-being. The physical environment well-being refers to the school environment and infrastructure in terms of the school infrastructures, resources, lab resources, technology resources. These were identified as important for their well-being. Their physical well-being in terms of the number of classes they have to teach, being overburdened with that was identified as well. And the last one is about cognitive well-being, which is more related about their professional development and their growth in the teaching profession. In the second step of administrating the National Teacher Survey, the occupational well-being scale was applied to more than 5,000 teachers in Jordan from different governorates, from different directorates, and those were selected based on a kind of desegregation information between gender, location, type of school, to make sure that we gonna have a representative sample of all teachers in the country. Through that process, actually, we come to understand very much the occupational well-being and needs of teachers, and we come to understand that teacher wanted the support provided to them to be holistic and for them actually to be seen as a whole and holistic rather than individuals or passively providing services for teachers. Therefore, much of the intervention we developed actually was initially to respond to some of the domains identified by teachers, specifically the 3 domains identified by teachers that we supported is their social, the issues relation to social well-being, the other one about self-awareness, and the other one is about cognitive well-being for teachers. So through different intervention, what we worked with teachers basically and with learners to co-design, prototype, and test a number of professional development courses and intervention focusing on improving teacher occupational well-being and the quality of teaching practices in relation to certain areas, such as creativity, innovation, and the use and utilize of different type of learning resources. We make sure that our intervention respond to the needs and priorities of teachers, yet meet their aspiration. So as we place teachers and educator as the center of different intervention we are making. We understand from teachers that teachers have a strong well-being when they can manage their emotion and their well-being as well. So 3, identify teacher well-being intervention strategies that can address the negative consequences of well-being through developing and providing training courses for teachers. The training courses provided teachers with a set of skills that can help them to manage their emotion, to practice mindfulness, based stress reduction skills, and keeping the big picture in mind while experiencing frustration or other negative emotion. Teachers reported to us who've been part of this program that it really affected the way not only they work with themselves or understand themselves, but as well the way they work with the school community, with teachers, with the school management, with parents, and with kids as well. At first, some of them told us their well-being, they understand well-being to be only in relation to their financial stability, kind of financial benefits from that perspective. But the broader picture of the well-being, they get to understand it and to practice it through the different courses and training program we offer to them. As teachers at the center of our work, we understand and we learn from teachers that they do have a strong well-being when they do interact with other teachers and with other educators, and when they do have opportunities to meaningfully attend and benefit from teacher professional development opportunities. Therefore, we support a new model of delivering courses for teachers that focusing on maintaining and creating a collaborative community of practices, a very generative community of practices where teachers, educators, school management can all together attend, they can share their experiences, they can ask questions, they can ask for help, and even a frustration, and get the support they needed. That was very important and very particularly important method to deliver our program, as teachers always informed us how far they benefit from this method. The different courses we have developed largely is based on the National Teacher Professional Development System that is accredited by the Ministry of Education. So the work we are doing at the same time supporting teachers, it supports the holistic provision of services for all teachers in the country, because in the end, every teacher will benefit from our program. As we worked with teachers as well, we understand from them that they don't want actually us to focus on the traditional ways of delivering learning and teaching for them. Rather, they would prefer using a variety of methods to make sure they are engaging, and they can as well make sure they can transfer the knowledge, they can get to understand the situation and transfer it into the classroom. As such, we working with them directly to make sure they're going to have opportunity for self-learning, where they can access materials and learn it by themselves. They can learn with their colleagues, with their peers as well. They can engage in online learning in addition to face-to-face learning, and they're gonna get the opportunity to be an expert-led teacher professional development opportunities. While working with teachers through these different phases and responding to their needs and priorities, we come as well to believe strongly that teachers' well-being experiences are quite similar around the world, and that we must attend to their well-being, both for the sake of teachers themselves, but as well for the children they teach. To continue to do that, we need always to learn from different experiences, to provide direct support for teachers, to make sure that the teachers' voices are heard, and that actually we consider their priorities and we can plan and support them in these different stages while they're teaching children. By saying that, I want to thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, I'm going to be very happy to answer them after Diana, I think. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Itaf. I love the nuanced way that you all are looking at well-being, the different dimensions, and then the different layers of the system, and how really attend for everything from the individual educators' physical, emotional, cognitive well-being to the way spaces are designed and how that contributes to learners and educators' well-being, as well as the way you're centering teachers in the process in really meeting them where they are to access these educational opportunities and building capacity together as a community, which I think is an excellent bridge into Diana's work, and which we'll dive into next. So I'm pleased to introduce Diana Woolis, Dr. Diana Woolis, Director of the Center for Professional Learning at CE International, a globally recognized expert in learning strategy, design, and implementation. Her focus is on underserved and marginalized populations in formal and non-formal settings. Using her sustainable learning framework, she helps organizations improve their performance and amplify their impact. She works with NGOs, multilateral organizations, education institutions and systems, foundations, ministries, and state and local government. Willis is the author of numerous articles, book chapters, and publications, and co-author of Taking College Teaching Seriously, Pedagogy Matters, Fostering Student Success Through Faculty-Centered Practice Improvement. The book reports on a successful project focused on improving outcomes for underserved populations in higher education. Currently, Willis is co-chair of the International Network of Education in Emergencies, INEE, Distance Education Reference Group. She is a member of the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030, the Connected Learning in Crisis Consortium, the CLCC, and the Refugee and Migrant Education Network, UNESCO Global Education Coalition, and contributors to the UNHCR Global Refugee Forum. She holds master's and doctoral degrees in adult learning and organization leadership from Teachers College, Columbia University, and a master's in social work and community organizing from the University of Connecticut. Prior to becoming the founding director of the Center for Learning and Practice, she was a founding partner of Knowledge in the Public Interest, a learning and design company. Diana, it's wonderful to have you here today, and excited to hear about your work with the Sustainable Learning Framework.
Thank you all. Very nice to meet you. I'm going to ask, if it's not too much, for everybody to turn their cameras on just for 1 minute so I know who I'm talking to. It makes it much easier to see people and see all your different locations. This is great. We've got a lot of different backgrounds going on here. Thank you. I don't know, we probably don't have time, but since we're a small group, Lana, can we just go take a quick round of where they are and what they do? You're on mute.
Happy to. We can also share in the chat where people are located.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, so inviting everyone to share in the chat where you're tuning in from the world and organizations that you might be connected with.
Yeah, and if you could just let us know if you're a teacher, if you work for the ministry, an NGO, just so I have a sense of who I'm talking to. And with that, I'm going to jump in and share my screen. I'm going to go kind of rapidly so we can, if we want to have a discussion. So I apologize in advance. I'm going to throw probably too much stuff at you, but I'm going to go for it here. Just tell me if you're seeing my screen. That a yes? Okay, let's go into, so I'm going to talk to you today about work that we're doing at CE International. And our work at the Center for Professional Learning is based on our sustainable learning framework. And I'm going to talk about one of our programs, Quality Holistic Learning for Refugees and Internally Displaced Children. And you'll note that it will sound like Itaf and I'm probably not doing well on your name, but Itaf, but that we have a very similar presentation. So you're going to see some strong themes here. So I'm going to go first to what is sustainable learning. And sustainable learning is that why? Let's see, let's make sure we have the right. Why sustainable learning? Because we need to accelerate the progress and support educators to improve the systems in which they work. And I'm sorry, but the Zoom is blocking my screen here. And the main thing that all teachers are dealing with, and teachers in displacement, or actually teachers who are teaching learners who are displaced, is that educators all over the world, both in developed and underdeveloped contexts, are facing a deluge of demands that well, COVID has really highlighted that, but the various demands that are coming from policymakers and parents and all of the ecosystem actors is added to by the new developments in learning science that teachers are expected to understand and master, and a whole array of technologies to assist learning. And one of the big things that we have heard from teachers and that we work with a lot is people wonder, what technology should I use? So people just completely overwhelmed. In short, they're overwhelmed from COVID, they're overwhelmed with information. And we think that sustainable learning is an answer to that. The reason is that it provides 5 disciplines and 16 practices that help any organization or learning endeavor navigate through the morass around them using these 5 strategies: purposeful pedagogy, systems thinking, looped learning, democratic engagement, and with digital geographies. I can go into more detail with that, but for now I'm going to hold on that because it is a lot of detail, and we have definitions for each of those. Underneath in the Center for Professional Learning, we created the Refugee Educator Academy. And with that, we have a project that's funded by Porticus on quality holistic learning. It is focused on increasing the quality holistic learning experience and outcome for refugee students. It builds on existing SEL measurement tools, social emotional learning. It centers teachers as self-directed learning. Itaf, you're shaking your head. I think you could have written this. Actually, if I was taking notes from Itaf, this is what would be on the slide. And we're working in 4 countries: Chad, Kenya, Lebanon, and Niger. We're wrapping this project up. All of our materials are in Arabic, French, and English, and were designed with teachers and by teachers. So I'm going to just show you quickly what those look like. This is what each country, the group of teachers decided what they want to do and how they want to do it. So in Kenya, they did a handbook on quality holistic learning. And this is about the 3rd iteration of that, because we've had input from the ministry and UNHCR and a whole range of folks. And so you'll see we start with the Kenya competency-based curriculum. It's very important to align this work with the national curriculum. So this is what Kenya did, and they wanted to do, because of the refugee camps there and the locations of teachers, they chose to do a handbook that they could print out and use with teachers in a face-to-face context. In Niger, they are doing, they have more challenges in terms of remoteness and technology connectedness. So they structured a set of workshops, and then they created this. We have this facilitator guide. So any of the teachers, the fellows who have designed this, who want to train teachers in their area, can use this facilitation guide. I should say that the fellows for each team were selected based on an application process. And overall, when we opened it up in the 4 countries, we had about 500 applicants, teacher applicants, to work on this. The teachers then were selected. They became fellows. They took work together to create these materials. Let me just go for a minute to see if I can reshare on another screen. I'm just going to go, if you can hang on. Let's see. Thank you for your patience while I'm dealing with Zoom, which is hiding somewhere. Hope you have a good editor. Elaine, are you laughing at me or are you laughing with me?
With you, Diana. Always.
It's okay. This is what happens, you know? Okay, so here we go. Tell me if you can see this. Can you see this? So this is a map between the Quality Holistic Program and our Sustainable Learning Framework. Again, I'm not going to go through this specifically, but I do want to just take a minute to highlight. And I know I'm zooming through this, but I would love to open it up for questions and conversation. So systems thinking, the practices, and again, each of these, we will be coming out with a field guide for sustainable learning sometime by September that enables anybody who wants to apply this. We are very practice focused. I should say that this is based on all of our work with QHL, Quality Holistic Learning, is based on a Refugee Educator initiative we did in the United States, which was externally evaluated and was found to be successful with teachers. So this builds on that. So in systems thinking, we are looking for teachers and others in the education ecosystem to organize for collective leadership, to organize for collective impact, distribute leadership, and design for complexity. Again, if you go back to what Itaf was saying, her program, she addressed each of these points in their design, which is very exciting. For loop learning, start with a theory of change. For a teacher, that means starting out with the end in mind. What are you trying to get done with your students? Embed reflection and work from ministries to parents to communities. We need to reflect on what we're doing, why we're doing, and how we can change that. And we need to generate analytics that guide improvement, not for evaluation, but analytics that can inform a teacher about how to do what they're doing and what they're doing. I have not addressed today in this presentation that we are developing the first app. Itaf, you might be interested in this. It's for teachers. It's a tool for teachers who can, an app that can be used on or offline to support them with quality holistic learning. And I can talk about that separately. We're piloting it. We've designed it and it'll be piloted in May and June. Purposeful pedagogy. The practices are that you focus on practice. That means for us, we're not about theory, we're about theory-informed practice, where we're focused on the work that we do, the training that we do is focused on helping people work better. It's not just for knowledge acquisition, it's for skill acquisition, application, and improvement from a teacher's point of view. But that aligns with other ambitions of the ministry or other institutions. You rely on evidence. You know, there's lots of evidence for a lot of the things like Itaf again was talking about. All of the things that she mentioned are evidence supported. She could document that probably in her sleep. The co-creation of content is essential. It used to be you handed down a curriculum and then, you know, everybody had to do the same thing. The materials that I have shown you are informed by a structure like the standards for social emotional learning and the Kenyan, for example, competency-based curriculum. But the teachers are creating the content. You have to have teachers talking to teachers. Again, I go to Atif's point about communities of practice. They want to talk to each other. It's much more important that they talk to each other and co-create than anything else. Last in that is use multiple modalities. And by that, I mean all of the senses. Can I read it? Can I hear it? Can I see it? And all of the kinds of channels, social media, paper, radio, whatever it is that your community is most likely to consume any kind of professional development. Democratic engagement means that you have, going to the next one, you have facilitated discourse, which includes communities of practice. You have open education resources, and you convene structured learning communities. And finally, for digital inclusion, which we've updated the framework to focus not just on digital geographies, but specifically on digital inclusion, means that you have open systems. So enabled connected learning means that teachers or anybody else can be self-directed, self-paced, use a mix and match of materials, sound, video, you know, whatever, to construct their learning journey. And importantly, we're looking at micro-credentials, smaller bits of credentialing for teachers in this area so the competency can be documented. And again, it's another thing I'm not talking about today, but I can talk more about that or direct you to the link. Atif, you might also be interested in that because we did a competency-based system that's portfolio, it's work-based. The second thing is the co-design of innovations. I'm just going to take a minute here. As somebody who spent a lot of years in technology, with a lot of people in technology telling me what teachers want and what I want. That doesn't work. You get, we have a lot of the first wave of technology was focused on administration and registration and all of the things that are important, but very little that helps teachers. The second wave is on personalized learning, where you have all kinds of very important things happening on the part of students. Teachers may learn how to use those technologies, but we have just begun, again, repeating what Itaf said, focusing on teachers and their improvement based on their ambitions, goals, needs, priorities, and contexts. And lastly, when we do all of this and we do it online, it's absolutely critical that we provide secure spaces. And that means privacy, security, especially if you're working with kids, all of the kinds of safety measures you need to take when you're protecting children, particularly online. So I'm going to stop there because I know I've just raced through everything, but I wanted to leave the last bit open. I'm happy to talk about any of the things just to highlight. We talked about the sustainable learning framework, the quality holistic learning, which is in 3 languages and is a course, is offline material, online material, the micro credentials, and the forthcoming app.
Fantastic. Thank you, Diana. And I agree, I think there's great resonance between your work with the sustainable learning framework and with TREE, both in building that social emotional learning competency, the attention to systems thinking, that centering of teachers and really meeting them where they are and really co-designing learning opportunities with them to both build their capacity with these frameworks, but then help, share those with learners, administrators, others within the system. Before we open to the audience Q&A, I wanted to ask the two of you a question around how can we create, in I think your work each speaks to this, more generative spaces for teachers and educators to work together, and especially seeing the resonance between your work. How can we create more generative spaces for organizations like yours to work together?
If I may start, thank you for the question, Lana. It's very important. I guess this summit is a very good example of how could we really create a generative spaces for different organizations to collaborate for teachers' professional development. The experience I provided about TREE, Diana, experience on the holistic framework. Actually, these are kind of examples that only we could have shared through this platform. And of course, I hope that further we're gonna get to know more each other and to collaborate as well. We mentioned it during the discussion about how educators and teachers can work together through community of practice that we both of us emphasized. I guess the other issue that always come to mind is in relation to the role of principals or head teachers in the process, as being educator and a coach as well, and how important that he or she is part of the process of learning for teachers, and as well as school supervisors and inspectors. From our experience at TREE, we get them to be engaged from the first place. So head teachers are introduced to the program and inducted about it. Supervisors are the mentors and coaches for teachers who work together. That was a very much of effective model so far as we have implemented. Thank you.
I would just jump in and say yes to everything she said, for starters. And then add that it is really important, this idea of a theory of change and having a goal. So when we bring people together, the idea of bringing people together just for the sake of being together and for synergies is very useful. In this way, we discover each other. The way to really co-create is for us to share, I used to call it a point of passion or a point of pain. What is it that we're trying to do? And a very good example right now is what's going on in Ukraine and the mobilization there and how different people are bringing different things. So starting off with what is it what is the problem we're trying to do, mapping the actors, thinking about who can bring what to the table, and then structuring that community of practice and those activities around what's needed and who can do what. And to that point, when we do collaboration and we work in these kind of co-creations, don't expect everybody to do everything or everybody to show up. If everybody has a piece of work that they can manage, which is how we had to work with these teachers, some of them who were in Chad and very remote refugee camps, we have to work with what people can bring to the table, and everybody brings something to the table, especially when it's a group of teachers that they know what they need. And they very much want to connect with each other. So we start with, as we say, start with the end in mind, have a focused reason for gathering, structure and map your response, divide the labor, and have clear something called in collective impact, a backbone organization. And again, because I'm not good at doing two things at once, but you can look at collective impact, backbone organization, and actually looking at collective impact so that you're very planful. An aside is, there is an expression used in the United States, and I don't know if it's holds globally, but if you build it, they will come. I'm here to tell you, if you build it, they will not come. They don't come unless they have a reason to come. So when you build something, you have to engage the people. So a lot of communities of practice are, oh, we're going to create a space and people can talk to each other. It doesn't work that way. You have to respond and engage them in what is the agenda and then plan it out. So back over to you, Lana.
Yeah, no, and that last point, I think especially resonates with my next question, and I welcome others to begin posting questions in the chat and raised hand function. But you both highlight the importance of meeting teachers where they are, of aligning, for example, with national curriculum, and really, working within the existing systems, but yet also finding these sort of levers of change. I'd love to learn more about your work in that localization and contextualization. Diana, your work has been implemented in a number of sites. Itaf, I'd love to hear about how you're thinking about the TREE program and where that might be grown to other spaces. What are the conditions of success or challenges in this kind of localization, contextualization, meeting teachers where they are?
Yeah, Lana, it's indeed a great question, and I would rather prefer to say it is localization rather than contextualization. Yes, to some degree we do contextualization, but in TREE actually what we're doing is like locally created. There are good practices that are universally accepted and we all agree on it. And in Save the Children, we've developed a common approach on enabling teachers that reflects what science have told us when it comes to good practices when we develop working with teachers and teacher professional development. But the starting point is to work with each local context and to give teachers the voice they need actually to voice their concern, priorities, and aspirations, and to be at the center of the whole process. So that is crucial. We learned so much actually. We apply different methods to make sure that we can hear them and we are being iterative. So we use design thinking principles through the whole process to make sure that it is not only one-time trial, it's rather iterative. So we listen to them, we make changes, we try it, then we listen, then we understand until we reach a point we will feel with them that we are happy and satisfied. Not only that, but as well, actually, we are piloting a proof of concept where we're going to get more evidence about the impact of our program. So it is a teacher at the center, but as well, we're generating evidence about our program to make sure that the impact we are aiming to is being realized. Having both is part of the theory of change that we are embarking on and making sure that we continue. we aim actually that we're gonna expand and we can scale up that experience, not only in Jordan, but as well in the region. Being in a region with similarities at different levels, not only the language, but the culture as well, type of refugee crisis that that hit us all the time, is we feel something that we can contribute to improve the well-being of teachers in other countries and in other places, and their professional development as well. Back to you, Diana.
I'll just add to that, and if I can share my screen again for 1 second, then I can show you another way to engage folks. So this is, are you seeing my screen? This is our course site for the quality holistic learning. And you'll see that there are a series of these that say clone of. This enables us for this online course. And this is the Lebanese, the course in Lebanon. So this is the online course that I was talking about. And I can show you that in a second, but to say all of these for anybody who's on this call or any place else, if you want to customize this for your country or your school, it is very easy for us to support that. And that this is one of the ways to create that generative environment, is to provide the tools to teachers and to countries where they can adapt and adopt materials and resources to their own context. So that's really what we specialize in, is creating open education resources in this space of refugees that can be adapted. So for example, I can do this in both Arabic and English, but when I do it in English, it comes up in the left to right, sorry. Well, let's see if I can, well, it's in Arabic. So I think there are several people on who do read Arabic. And you can see what this group has done. This group of teachers has been really very active. They created this course. We gave them access to the platform, and they did a lot of the work themselves through their creation of the course. So the question you ask is, what creates generative environments? Creating the time, the space, the resources, and the support for people to come and create. You know, it's that simple. I mean, it's maybe it's not that simple. Somebody once said teaching isn't rocket science. It's much harder than that. So this is a little bit like that. You know, you need to have those pieces in place so that people can be creative, productively creative together. And this is what we have in this space. I'm trying to see if I can find one version of this in English. So you can see what these courses look like. I'm going to stop sharing, and you'll see the modules down here. And this can be, again, adapted. It can be shortened. It can be whatever it is anybody wants to do with the course for their context. Can I address there's a question in chat, and I'm not sure I understand it. Rezeni, could you say more about the question?
Okay, thanks for this opportunity. And also, like, about this question, like, I just searched your site on the web, and I've seen like the 5 pillars of sustainability. So I just want to hear some ideas and like some things about it instead of going for it. For me, if it's okay.
Okay. Let me see how best to answer your question. I think the best way is to, I'm going to share my screen again. You know what? So let me try something else that I have, which is a little overwhelming. Okay, so if I can share my screen again, and I don't know if I'm answering your question here, so please feel free to stop me if I'm going in the wrong direction. So to answer your question, in this case, you'll see that, as I said, we mapped our the quality holistic learning to the sustainable learning framework. So the idea is, if you're doing a project or you're starting out, you can look at these as indicators of what you might want to have in place. So here for systems thinking with QHL, we had multi-stakeholder engagement, we had focal countries, we had teacher fellows, and we had iterative and flexible design. What you're seeing in the quality holistic learning materials is probably the 4th or 5th iteration that was done with teachers as we progress. The technology, we changed technologies in that, for example, in many places they couldn't use Zoom, we use WhatsApp, we have WhatsApp community of practice groups, really focused on what they need. In loop learning, we started with our logic model and provided opportunities for critical inquiry. We provided new analytic tools, and we now have credentialing pathways. So Razina, let me stop there, because I don't want to just keep talking if I'm not getting at what your question is.
My question is like, I just searched for it, and it says like it have like 5 pillars, like a building, like a structure. So the pillars are like the customer value, environmental footprint, quality workforce.
You're on the, yes, I want, if Diane Whitehead is still on. Diane, are you still here by any chance? I don't know if she can hear me. Nope, I don't think she's here. So Diane is the
I am here.
Diane, can you speak to that, since it's more directly, if I might introduce Diane Whitehead as the CEO. And I think Razina is looking at pillars maybe of the workforce on the site. I'm not sure what he's looking at.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm also taking care of a little dog this morning. Oh, go. I think, Diana, it may be on the Center for Professional Learning site. This might not be something coming from our site.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're happy to, I think, follow up and find additional information to your question, Razim, about those pillars of sustainability. Thank you, Diana, and for Diane for jumping in. So our session is drawing to a close, but I'd like to kind of end with both a question from Glenn, but a kind of broader question as well. So one is around, how do we, support particularly those who are in scarce resource, areas. So those who lack internet access to, availability of, digital learning resources. And so how might your work in both on and offline settings? But more broadly, as we look at this kind of moment in time, what do we see that's needed to both not only face what we see as the growing refugee crisis, the latest example with Ukraine, what's needed now? So to Diana, your point about point of passion and point of pain, what's motivating and driving each of your work at this moment?
Yeah, I think to a great extent, what driving our work is a strong belief in in teachers' role in our society and their impact on children, and that if we really wanted to have children with good learning outcome, with good well-being, we need to work with teachers. We have a strong collaboration and partnership among different partners who come together to make sure that we can respond to that aim, and that we work scientifically as well, and in a consistent manner, including partners from Jordan and partners from outside Jordan, experts as well, but as well we bringing teacher at the center of what we're doing. So that kind of collaboration, organized collaboration and momentum really all the time gives us the passion and the push to continue to do what we're doing and to collaborate across the functions. But as well, we think that we can bring a change. I mean, speaking to the current growing refugee crisis, the learning we have gained actually from our experience in Jordan, and I think in other places in which refugee issue is persistent issue, is very much likely to help other countries who face the same trauma and the same problem. And one of which issue that we want to emphasize is teachers owe us to respect them, to value them, and to give them every opportunity for their growth. And it's important and most needed that we admit to their well-being and that we understand their well-being, specifically when it comes to refugee crisis. Of course, in all situations, in refugee crisis, it's more and most important. We should learn that. I would remember, like in Jordan, that wasn't very much important. The focus was on the child, which is great, but to some great extent, there were no focus on the well-being of children, of teachers. And that really affects the whole, I would say, the relationship or the balance between both. So this is a key issue that drives us, and we hope actually to transfer it and to give it to other countries in different contexts.
I would agree again with all of that. And I just want to remind people, while we too are very focused on the situation in Ukraine, we're very mindful that I'm not going to get these numbers exactly right, but that 80% of refugees are in the global south, not in Europe. That's number one. And number two, we work with organizations like Plan or like other with UNHCR on the ground with the implementers. So we are not on the ground. We support others, like I assume folks on this call, to do what they do better and best. So really understanding what's happening on the ground is important.
Thank you so much, Diana and Itaf. I think your work really powerfully speaks to how we need a whole ecosystem working on this together at really all levels. So I'm excited about the connections we've made between your two organizations. I hope we can continue to generate the conditions for those seeds of collaboration. I want to thank everyone for joining this Migration Summit session. Recording of today's session will be available in the coming days. And we invite you to register and join our future sessions, including our session on mentorship and advising, which you'll see in the chat, which is starting now. So thank you all for your time and have a wonderful day.